Listen, we all been through the situation where we wanted to know something and the person seems like they just don't want to tell us. Well, lucky for you, that's exactly what we're going through right now. There is so much information about the minimum wage topic that people just don't know about. And this video is to be the solution to what they're not telling you about minimum wage. So firstly, no, we're not listening to Joe Biden. We're going to listen to people responding to Joe Biden about the minimum wage, so don't click off. The majority of this video is going to be Thomas Sowell, so if you like Thomas Sowell or similar content, go ahead and drop a like, hit the subscribe button and the bell, and share this video, because if you really enjoyed this video, why would you want to prevent other potential viewers from enjoying this as well? So make sure you subscribe.
It's time we had a $15 an hour minimum wage so families can earn a living and get ahead. As president, I'll make sure we get it done.
The $7.25 minimum wage that exists now is in many instances, an exploitation of the American worker.
So if you look over here to the right of the video, you should see a card that pops up, and this video is where I address the concept of a living wage, whatever that means. A living wage means that the capitalist of a business has a moral responsibility to take care of their laborers, instead of just paying them based on their production rate. But the capitalist doesn't have a moral responsibility over someone else's life. They didn't cause those situations to be in their life. Just as my neighbor's car breakdown doesn't mean I am obligated to help him. The capitalist only has a moral responsibility over what he can control, and since he's the owner of the business and cause the laborers to work for him, he can only pay them based on the production rate.
Tom, one top that we've talked about for a very, very long time, the minimum wage.
They simply think, it'll raise the pay of people at the bottom, and that's a good thing. Well, what it really does, as you pointed out, probably more so than a whole lot of other people, is that it prices low-skilled, inexperienced people out of a job.
Now, the main thing to understand about a minimum wage is that it makes labor more expensive. And if you reverse the point of view of a laborer looking for work and try to make it seem like the capitalist is looking for workers, you can quickly see as the capitalist is shopping for workers that all his potential workers are expensive. And therefore, the capitalist is prompted to look for the best worker. And this translates into whoever has the most amount of experience. Typically, high school students that are just coming out to find a job are priced out of the market because they have no experience, and therefore no one wants to hire them.
Let me give you a very simple example. Take the minimum wage law. It's well-meaning sponsors. There are always, in these cases, two groups of sponsors. There are the well-meaning sponsors, and there are the special interests who are using the well-meaning sponsors as front men. You almost always, when you have bad programs, have an unholy coalition of the do-gooders on the one hand and the special interests on the other. The minimum wage law is as clear a case as you could want. The special interests are, of course, the trade unions. The do-gooders believe that by passing a law saying that nobody shall get less than $2 an hour or $2.50 an hour or whatever the minimum wage is, you are helping poor people who need the money. You are doing nothing of the kind. What you are doing is to assure that people whose skills are not sufficient to justify that kind of a wage will be unemployed. The unemployment rate among teenagers in this country is over twice as high as the overall unemployment rate. It's no accident that that was not always the case until the 1950s, when the minimum wage rate was raised very drastically, very quickly.
What did I just say? What did I just say?
The minimum wage law in the United States, Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, was passed with specified rates of pay that you're supposed to get. Almost immediately, inflation took off during the 1940s. So by 1948, those numbers that were in the law were meaningless. Now a black kid 20 years later comes in there. People have become compassionate. They raised the minimum wage, so he can't get a job. And I don't think it does any community any good to have a whole lot of teenage males hanging around on the streets with no job and nothing to do.
People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level.
Well, that is utter nonsense. It doesn't even pass the smell test. If it were an anti-poverty device, well then, instead of spending all this money on foreign aid, we just have our experts at the State Department tell Bangladesh, well, you could be rich like we are, just have a higher minimum wage.
The people who have been hurt most by minimum wage laws are the blacks. I have often said that the most anti-Negro law on the books of this land is the minimum wage rate.
And this goes back to what I was saying earlier. The average age of the black community is very low. And because of this, they lack years experience, which forces them out of a job and keeps them into poverty. And not to add on the massive correlations between poverty, unemployment, and crime. This is the information that they're leaving out of the debate when it comes to minimum wage. It has to be driven home that it has a negative economic impact, and more importantly, it has to be driven home that the morality that justifies minimum wage is absolutely evil. The morality that justifies the existence of minimum wage is forcing other people to sacrifice themselves to take care of other people, regardless if you didn't even cause that person to be in that predicament. But most fundamentally, they want to get rid of choice. The fact that you're forced to pay someone the state tells you instead of doing your own evaluation of that person and their productivity. And yeah, that's it.